Hey babes, haha, welcome back to another video. And today, well, let me hurry up and get this over with before my dad cusses me out for not cleaning the kitchen. But today I'm sharing with you all, I was going to call it a fart work, but I ended up putting a little more time and effort into it than a typical fart work would have. So I'm not going to call this quite a fart work. And I actually really surprisingly really liked how this turned out. And the inspiration behind this piece was like African art meets Asian art in a way, because I have a deep interest in just all of the arts actually. I have a seriously deep interest in African, Asian art. I was gonna say Mayan, but I haven't looked into it that much. But I've seen Asian art and I'm just so fond of it because I like the simplicity and the use of watercolor and texture in the art, but the simplified human figures. Okay, as I've explained to you all, I'm not the biggest fan of overly complicated art. Especially highly realistic. I'm more into not quite impressionism, but surrealistic, like I've said, and sometimes impressionism, and just taking real life and turning it into a caricature of what life is like. I don't think I'm explaining this very well. Basically, it's like turning everyday things into a 2D piece of work, and I really enjoy this simplistic art style. Actually, a lot of artists that I follow on Instagram have except for the sculpture artists, that's a little different, have a very simplistic 2D style to their art that does not look realistic at all. But those are my favorite people to follow. I love the over-exaggeration or the under-exaggeration of things. Like the way I under-exaggerated her dress where it almost looks like a 2D drawing. It is a 2D drawing, but I didn't try to make it appear to be more than that. It almost takes on a child form the way I do it. And I freestyled her hand. I'm better at painting than I am drawing. I had the hardest time drawing her hand, and there was no hand on the paper until I started painting. I attempted to draw the hand and I failed 100 times. So I said F it, and I just painted the hand, and it ended up looking much better than my hideous drawings did. I don't understand how that works. As you saw there, I was starting to use marker. Then I realized I don't like marker very much. So I used my wonderful India ink. And the inspiration for her fantastic hairstyle was a woman that I found on Instagram who looked like an African who's lived either in a colonized country in Africa or African American who looks like they have close roots to Africa. It was a bubble hairstyle. It was beautiful, and you can tell it was her real hair. And I was just amazed by how wonderful that hairstyle looked, the bubbles, and how we use so much African influence in everyday art, fashion, and style, and all that stuff. And it's just amazing to me. It's amazing to me how much we use African influence in American fashion, in American art. There's some European in there too, but there's a whole lot of African, especially nowadays with the dashiki style and hair wraps that we've been using. And Bantu knots have become popular even amongst some fashion designers. A lot of different African hairstyles and just so many different other things that we never knew about. And it's amazing. And I just wanted to express this on this artwork. I don't know if some of you all have an issue with me in the African themed stuff all the time. But you know what? I don't care. And what gets me sometimes, not necessarily any of you subscribers because y'all are wonderful, but just people in general, because I've seen it before. I haven't seen it necessarily on my channel completely, but I've seen it other places, is where someone would ask an artist or anybody if they would draw something other than black people or Africans. And I'm thinking to myself, have you ever asked a white person who only draws white people, or any person who just draws white people, the same thing? Have you ever asked them to draw black people if you're white? I don't think you have. I don't think most people do. So if a majority of YouTube artists, or just artists in general, want to draw a certain race or paint a certain race, why can't I? What's wrong with it just being a blackout? That sounded crazy, but I'm not saying I'm anti-white or anti-anything. I just feel like there's an oversaturation of artists portraying white people already. And why do I need to add on to that? Especially when I started out drawing people, it was never white people. Let's just be honest. And don't think it's racist or anything, the way I'm coming off. It's nothing to do with race. It's just, I known since a child I was black, and most of the people I lived around were African, and African Americans. And so that's what I first learned to paint, and those are the skills I've honed. And I have branched out. I have drawn white people. I have drawn all races. But I'm best at Africans and African Americans, because that's where my passion lies, and that's just what I've known to do. Because there's just an oversaturation of like everything else. Of course, every once in a while, I'm still gonna do other races. Of course, mostly people of color, because again, like I said, I think there's an oversaturation of artists portraying white people in art almost all the time. Even the art we learn of the most famous art masters, as they like to put it, only draw and paint and portray white people. It's never any other races. It's just all white people. And that's what's popularized by media. Even one of the most famous paintings in the world is a white woman. So why should I derive from that? Why can't I keep the way I like to paint and draw? Not saying any of y'all have said anything. I'm just speaking in general in case anybody was ever wondering. And that's just my passion. Anyway, that's all I have to share with you guys. I hope you enjoyed this piece just as much as I've enjoyed this piece, because this turned out much better than I ever thought it could be. And I really liked it very much. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys sometime this week. Bye.